Hello everyone, it is Matt here from Scoop In Response, and today we are looking at a brand new commander that came out just this morning. It is Thrasta Tempest's Roar. It's a big old dinosaur dude. I am pegging this as the mono green commander to dethrone Selvala as the best mono green CDH commander. This thing is absolutely busted awesome. So essentially it's a 10 green 7/7 legendary creature dinosaur. This spell costs 3 less to cast for each other spell cast this turn. And it has trample, haste, trample over planeswalkers. Thrasta Tempest Roar has hexproof as long as it entered the battlefield this turn. So really the only thing we care about is this very first line of text. This spell costs 3 less to cast for each spell cast this turn. So we can do absolutely broken shit with this commander. We can absolutely break the game. It combos with everything. We get to do all sorts of cool, wonderful things with it. And I think at the very least, it's going to be on par with how good Selvala is and the Brostorm lists. But at the worst case, it's probably going to get an include in a lot of decks that want to use something like this. So the main things that we can do with a commander like this is food chain and all of those sorts of shenanigans. So mono green doesn't really have a great food chain commander. Obviously Temur is the best colors to run food chain just because you've got all 3 of the previous food chain commanders or food chain creatures that you could use. And then you've got things like Prosh and Korvold. I love playing Korvold. It was probably my first proper CDH deck. I didn't quite get it all the way as I didn't have a lot of the staples, but it was definitely insane to be able to sort of win in your combat step on turn 2, turn 3. It was just absolutely awesome. So I've got a soft spot for food chain lists in general. I try and make them work whenever I can, but yeah, I absolutely love this commander. You can do so many different things with this. If you wanted to go a Voltron build, you could definitely do that. If you wanted to just play a whole bunch of Cheerios or a whole bunch of cheaper artifacts, you can build a Storm list. There's really only 3 or 4 Storm payoffs in mono green, with probably the best one being Aetherflux Reservoir. But a whole bunch of cheap or free artifacts and free or cheap equipment, and you're going to be able to cast this on turn 2 straight away. There's lots of cool things you can do with it, but we're going down a really heavy food chain route. Now, the reason that I think that this commander is better than Selvala, which you'll see I've actually got Selvala in this list. The reason that I think that this commander is better than Selvala is Selvala needs a whole bunch of cards within the creature pool to combo off with. So it can combo with any of them, and it's super, super consistent. But it's quite slot heavy, so you've probably got about 10 different creatures that you're using to go infinite with Selvala, with untaps and things like that. So you need all of these, objectively terrible creatures that just happen to let you generate a whole bunch of mana. So you've got Phyrexian Dreadnought, and you've got Relic Golem, and a few other things like that. There's heaps and heaps. Sheltering Ancient, all of these creatures that just aren't that great because they have this big downside when you play them, but they happen to give you a whole bunch of power. So yeah, essentially with Thrasta, you've got so many different, discrete, neat combos so you can run this as a bit of a shotgun. So you've got your food chain combo, you've got anything that lets you, generate a whole bunch of Storm. You're going to be able to sort of synergize with that with Aetherflux Reservoir. And you've got a whole bunch of other things. And I guess the main thing is because we've able to take out probably 6 to 8 of those really clunky creatures that are just about comboing with Selvala, you've actually got a whole bunch more space to run stacks pieces. You've got things you could run other combos with, lots of different hate bears and all of that. And that actually makes a really big difference. The list that I've put together, I would say First and foremost, it's, you know, a day one list, so don't take it as gospel for being the very best version of this list. I've put a few of my favorite cards in as well, just because I love having access to those cards in a mono green deck. But I would say that there's probably a little bit of room for big draw spells or big draw effects like Greater Good and that sort of thing. So you'll notice that while there is plenty of card draw, I think it probably needs a little bit more if you want to take this to a CDH table. So that's probably the longest intro I've ever done on a video. Let's check out the list. First and foremost, we have our creatures with Walking Ballista, Allosaurus Shepherd, all of the... Excuse me. Oh, wow. All of the regular dorks that you would expect to see. Kyrian Ranger, Collector Oof, Destiny Spinner. Now, Destiny Spinner is a really good one because we have a very, I guess, high density of enchantments for both ramp, stacked pieces, and our combo pieces. So Destiny Spinner is just absolutely great because not only does it give our creatures uncounterable, it also gives our enchantments uncounterable. So super good there, and a bit of redundancy on top of Allosaurus Shepherd as well. Also, cool thing is that because it's not just limited to green spells, we can cast our Walking Ballista safely once Destiny Spinner's on the board, and yeah, it's all good from there. Basically, with Food Chain, you cannot use the mana that you generate for anything. It's just for creature spells. So the tightest win would be to use Food Chain to make infinite mana and then cast a Walking Ballista where X is 10 billion and you kill all of your opponents with Walking Ballista activations. So that's, I guess, the tightest line. There's a whole bunch of other ways that you can do things like that. There's a whole bunch of other ways that you can convert that creature mana into regular mana, which we will go into as well. Back to the creatures, we have Elvish Visionary. This card, it seems, it's so unassuming. It's ETBs, draws a card. But I promise you, it is the most insane card that you could possibly have in a deck like this. You can bounce it late game and you can continue to keep drawing and drawing and drawing with it. It's going to increase your storm count, it's going to generate you cards, and it's absolutely sweet. Collector Oof, most of the time this is just going to be a choice card for when you're playing against a particularly artifact heavy deck, or you see a good opportunity where you've got all of your creature ramp and maybe your opponents are opening with, you know, Soul Rings and Mana Crypts, and you're effectively able to just stop them dead in their tracks then and there. I wouldn't expect to keep it on the board for the whole game, but it's definitely going to be there. If you like the idea of, you know, Null Rod and all of that as well, I would say it's fine. The problem is that you've got a lot of ways to bounce a Collector Oof. We've got some artifacts that we need to rely on, so essentially it's a bit of a nombo if we're running the Null Rod, because it's really easy to bounce a creature, not as easy to bounce a artifact in mono green. Next up, we've got Lotus Cobra, Priest of Titania, Scrib Ranger. These are pretty much staples for a mono green list like this. You'll see that there's a lot of cards that have a lot of overlap with the Selvala list. You know, I haven't really ventured too far from that. Elvish Spirit Guide is just another way that you can generate some fast mana if you need to. Eternal Witness, super cool card in this list because you can use it to essentially tooth and nail to victory after you have infinite mana. So Eternal Witness and Walking Ballista, you can go and get both of those. The Ewit gets the Walking Ballista out of the graveyard, and Bob's your uncle. Kazandu Mammoth, I don't mind it. We've got some landfall combos, so you can see a Shire and Kyrian Ranger are an infinite combo just with the two of them, so they're absolutely sweet if you've got a way to pump your Kazandu Mammoth by continuously bouncing and bouncing and bouncing. You can make your Mammoth infinitely big, and you can just kill one person with that. We've also got Ronus's Monument in the list, so you can give it Trample, and you know that essentially is just another form of being able to get there with a creature that's not your primary win con. Given that it's a land on the other side, I feel like the opportunity cost for this particular card is so low, I just think it works super well. Manglehorn, it's the go-to replacement over Reclamation Sage because it's got that additional artifacts your opponents control enter tapped clause on it. So really sweet card there. Prowling Serpapod, so this is the third creature spell protection creature, so you've got 3 different targets for that. You know, if you need to do a Green Sun Zenith or something like that, you're definitely going to have some form in your deck still. Selvala, this is really just a way to generate infinite mana. You know, not infinite mana, you can definitely do it, but I guess the main thing with something like this would be that there's going to be some turns where you just can't quite get your commander out, or some games where you can't get your commander out early enough, and Selvala sort of gives you that opportunity to capitalize from your commander being hard cast, later on down the track. Beast Whisperer for all of the draw. Team of Sabertooth for bouncy, makes sense. Ashaya is a combo piece. If you've seen the channel before, you would have seen how much I love Tree Folk. Ashaya, Eudora, absolutely awesome. And then we've got Kadama of the East Tree, which is another, I guess, pseudo combo piece, or essentially something that you can do to start cheating in, creatures or lands onto the battlefield. So just a really awesome card overall. Great target if you've got the spare mana to basically start going off for a value play in the mid game. Okay, moving on to spells, we have Glimpse of Nature, Green Sun Zenith, Finale of Devastation, Life's Legacy, Eldritch Evolution, Natural Order, Tooth and Nail, Autumn's Veil, Crop Rotation, Nature's Claim, Noxious Revival, Veil of Summer, Worldly Tutor, Weather the Storm, Beast Within, Chord of Calling, Crowsun Grip, Force of Vigor, Return of the Wild Speaker, Shared Summons, Turn Timber Symbiosis. So these are your bread and butter green instants and sorceries. We've got a lot more, I guess, hate cards and a lot more protection spells than we can fit into a Selvala list because, as we mentioned earlier, the slots that we've got access to, because we don't have to have as many cards to combo off with our commander. So all of these means that you've effectively got a few extra hate pieces, I think one additional tutor compared to the regular list, and a few more protection pieces and recursion pieces. So the only other thing worth mentioning is Weather the Storm. There's going to be an opportunity in some games where you might just need to generate infinite life, and Weather the Storm can mean that after you've infinitely cast your commander, you can then just gain infinite life. We're running Aetherflux Reservoir, so that means that you can just have a win con, waiting to go as soon as you draw that Aetherflux, because you've got enough mana to activate it and kill everyone on the spot. Beast Within, Chord of Calling, these are both just great cards. We don't have a lot of removal, obviously, because, we're in mono green. Shared Summons, it's a useful tutor for 2 creatures, so I really like that card in this list as well. And yeah, you've got your usual draw and tutor for all of those things. Moving on to artifacts and enchantments, we have Carpet of Flowers, Shaper's Sanctuary, Utopia Sprawl, Wild Growth, Cryptolith Rite, Earthcraft, Kenrith's Transformation, Survival of the Fittest, Sylvan Library, Choke, Food Chain, Allurin, Guardian Project. And then for artifacts, Soul Ring, Chrome Mox, Jeweled Lotus, Lotus Petal, Mana Crypt, Mox Diamond, Mox Opal, Arcane Signet, Defense Grid, Ronus's Monument, Aetherflux Reservoir, and the Great Henge. The Great Henge is dog shit, except for the fact that our commander is 7, so we can cast this for 2 so often if we actually have our commander on the field. And it has hexproof the turn that it comes into play, so I would say that quite often that this is a reasonable follow-up to your commander, because they're not going to be able to remove it. So what we're looking at is a whole bunch of ramp with Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth, Cryptolith Rite and Earthcraft. These kind of do the same thing, but kind of different at the same time. So with your Ashaya and Kyrian Ranger loops where you're bouncing and returning them to hand over and over and over again, if you have one of these out on the battlefield, you can actually use them to tap and untap your creatures. So particularly Earthcraft, you can tap the Kyrian Ranger in response to its own bounce, so you can basically generate an additional mana each time you play that. Cryptolith Rite is just great for using, cards that are kind of like storm cards in those early turns. So you've got your Llanowar Elves, it's got Summoning Sickness, but then you can, that's what the Earthcraft is for. The Cryptolith Rite is for all of your non-dorks, so your Elvish Visionaries, your Destiny Spinner, Collector Oof, all of these things can then be tapped for mana at that point. Lotus Cobra, another one as well. So it's just a bit of redundancy with that. I really like having a bit of redundancy for that. Cryptolith Rite's definitely a strict downside compared to the Earthcraft. If you do want to run something like a Haste Enabler, you can run Concordant Crossroads. I think that card is a bit risky, but it's definitely, you know, fine if you're not in a creature heavy meta, you know, and a lot of CEDH is definitely not creature heavy. It's kind of like a free roll for the haste, because who cares if they get an extra card out of Tymna versus I've got a 12/12 coming at me each turn, or, you know, one round of the table that can turn into a lot more damage. We've always going to have blockers, so we're not too worried about that extra, you know, attack from their small commander or something like that, or a Kinnan, or I don't know. Allurin is a bit of a spicy one. This is really just about being able to vomit a few extra creatures in the mid to late game if you either had your first attempt foiled or you didn't have protection. So you get the Allurin down, and it just means that you can turn all of your small creatures you can be playing for free at someone else's end step rather than during your turn. So I would say that you resolve the Allurin, you wait as long as you can, and then if someone wants to remove it, that's when you then just vomit all of those creatures onto the field, and you know, you can, because you can play it at flash, essentially at flash speed. Choke, I think it's great. It's just too hard to fit it into the Selvala list. Guardian Project, great for card draw. Survival of the Fittest is just sweet. You can use it to, you know, go and find your protection piece. You discard something that you want to cast. Later, you find your protection piece, like your Allosaurus Shepherd. You play your Shepherd, then you go and discard something else and go and get your Eternal Witness, and then, yeah, get back whatever it is you discarded first. So you can just do loops with that, and it's a really efficient piece. I think everything else is very straightforward from the enchantment side of things. Aetherflux Reservoir, so as I mentioned, we've got a lot of ways that we can kind of go infinite. The fastest being Walking Ballista after we've got our Food Chain and Commander, but, you know, Aetherflux Reservoir is just another one where you might have not even the Commander infinite, you've just got your Ashaya and your Kyrian Ranger loop. Each time that happens, you just instantly generate more and more life, and that's super sweet. Ronus's Monument also gives you that discount, which is absolutely unreal. Defense Grid, just a card for protection. Most of all, well, obviously only protection. It's the only thing it can do, but it's really just about, you know, having a few extra layers to stop someone from trying to interrupt your big turn. Because essentially, if you don't win after you have done your Food Chain loop, it is going to be very hard for you to be able to do that again. You've got one shot, one turn with that, because it only works for the one turn that you've actually played it, so for that particular turn. So as soon as you move to another turn, you know, Thrasta won't actually let you do it again. So yeah, because it's particularly rated, it costs 3 less for each spell cast this turn. So unless someone generates infinite spells on another turn and that's when you want to do it, you're not going to be able to get it again. So those are pretty well all of the enchantments and artifacts. The land base is very, I guess, it's pretty expensive given that we've got a Gaia's Cradle. You know, I would say that this is a very typical CEDH base for a mono green deck. You've got your Wasteland and your Strip Mine. One of the things you might have noticed, we don't have a Ramen Up Excavator. I think it's a perfectly valid include. I wouldn't fault anyone for running that card. I'm going to be experimenting myself with this list with a whole bunch of different types of stacks effects and work out where I want that mid-range component of this list to kind of go to. And yeah, I like Field of the Dead because I love my Ashaya combo, but you've got enough different types of lands that you can actually get away with having Field of the Dead because of just the amount of actual lands, and you can get those zombies. It's a super, like, you know, sometimes it works, but when we've got the land base of a mono green list, there's not a lot of opportunity cost to run, you know, a couple of colorless lands, because, you know, everything's super easy to cast. I think the worst thing to cast is probably Court of Calling. That's 3 pips. You know, we're not worried about, you know, color access for the most part. You know, we're not scared of Blood Moon, we're not scared of Magus of the Moon, all of those kinds of things. So every now and again, Field of the Dead is just going to generate you a few extra blockers, or, you know, give you some Earthcraft triggers where you can tap your, Earthcraft activations so that you can get a few extra additional pieces of mana and get that reach for that. That's pretty much the list. I am so pumped for this Commander to come out. I'm just absolutely stoked. I love this kind of deck. My Selvala list has been, I guess, poo-pooed at my table, at least for quite a while. I'm not allowed to bring it out too often, so I'm looking forward to shaking it up with a new Commander and a whole bunch of new cards. thank you so much for checking out the video, and if you enjoyed this list or any of the other videos, I really appreciate a subscribe and a like on the channel. We're growing really fast at the moment, and it's really exciting to see just how quickly the channel's growing. It's definitely super motivating for me. You know, every day I'm sort of getting more and more in the way of subs and everything like that. Thanks so much for checking out the video. Hope you enjoy the list, and bye for now.